Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. This topic we'll be covering is pollution and environmental coverage. My name is Carly Rom. I'm the marketing representative for Griffin Underwriting. On today's agenda, I'll go over a brief introduction to Griffin Underwriting Services, otherwise known as GUS. We'll cover some common exposures, pollution exclusions, claim examples, what our available products are, and writing business with Griffin Underwriting. As with each tutorial, I'll end with a contact sheet should you have any questions or need further assistance at a later time. So Griffin Underwriting was founded in 1928. We still are family owned and operated by the Griffin family. We were one of the first surplus lines brokers in our region to be granted binding authority by Lloyd's of London. We have just over 100 employees throughout 3 different offices in the Pacific Northwest, offering personal lines, commercial lines, transportation lines, and brokerage insurance solutions. Basically, we exist so business hopefully does not walk out your door. We've written over $95 million in premium to date, and we are licensed in all 50 states, including the District of Columbia, allowing us to work with agents nationwide. So I'm a visual learner. This helped me when I was first getting into the E&S or surplus lines markets and learning this side of the business. If you think of all of the market share in a box sitting on your desk, and in that box is a ball. Inside that ball is the standard market share, the admitted market share. This is where you, the agent, would place business in-house. The space in between the ball and the box is the non-admitted or surplus lines market share. This is where we reside. So in layman's terms, if you can't or having a hard time placing a policy within the quote-unquote ball, the admitted market share, before you let that customer walk out your door because of your lack of capabilities for whatever reason, maybe it's they're new in business, maybe there's a claims history, maybe your market share just doesn't have that particular product available, hopefully you would give us a call and see what options we can offer you so that you can still write that policy for your insured. Some common exposures, we've got the universal exposure. So think fire and explosion and storm damage. When we're talking about fire explosion, toxic cloud, firewater runoff, and the PCB release, so carbon atoms found in transformers and capacitors. Those are what we consider fire and explosion under universal exposures. When we're talking about storm damage, we've got flooding, debris, water damage, and then wind. We also have industry-specific exposures. So for contractors, we're talking about construction defect, damaging dust and fumes, or site management. A lot of different subcategories under the construction defect. Think water damage or soil contamination. For damaging dust and fumes, silica dust, lead paint chips, asbestos, mold, chemical overspray. When we're talking about site management, rupturing pipelines or sewer lines, demolition waste, wetland preservation, unexpected site contamination, all of these fall under industry-specific exposures. For transportation, chemical and fuel spills, so think that emergency highway response that is needed if maybe like a semi-truck that is carrying fuel tips over. This is a big deal and it tends to be very, very expensive. Loading and unloading, and then railways. Usually it's due to upset and overturn. We also have manufacturing and distributing. So under this, we've got joint and several liability for non-owner defunct disposal sites, managing vacant facilities, product pollution, product defect, as well as mislabeling, emissions, fumes, regulatory requirements, disposing of waste, and then third-party warehouse and fire explosion risk. And then finally, we've got the real estate exposure, commercial office space like tenants, dry cleaners, printing, pool supplies, that sort of thing, historical use of sites and historical fills, and then vapor intrusion, as well as mold abatement. Common exclusions for pollution coverage under the CGL pollution. It eliminates bodily injury, property damage, and cleanup costs arising out of the release of pollutants. Here's a bunch of subcategories: pollution or pollutants originating from the insured's premises, pollutants originating from waste disposal, pollutants treated as waste and transported, handled, stored, or disposed by the insured. Pollutants brought onto the premises, site or location in connection with the operations of any insured. pollutants at or from a site where any insured or any contractors or subcontractors are performing remediation work, any expenses arising from regulatory requirements to test for, monitor, clean up, remove, contain, detoxify, or neutralize the effects of pollutants, and then any claim or suit by government authority for damages. We have the CGL pollution exclusion, the at premises exceptions, so building and heating equipment, as well as hostile fire exception. So a lot of common exclusions for this particular type of coverage, just under the CGL. We have away from premises exceptions, that mobile equipment, contractor materials brought on by site, and products and completed operations. So you'll want to read these forms pretty carefully when it comes to exclusions. A lot of these can be endorsed back on. Sometimes they need to be covered by a different policy, but you'll want to make sure what a common exclusion is on this particular form. Here's a couple claim examples. Here's the first one. A truck carrying hazardous waste overturns, spilling its contents. We talked about this earlier in the tutorial. So it's likely excluded bodily injury or property damage arising out of the actual, alleged, or threatening discharge, dispersal, seepage, migration, release, or escape of pollutants, which are or were at any time transported, handled, stored, treated, disposed of. So this is a common exclusion. It can be endorsed back on the policy. It's interesting to note that an auto liability form has a similar pollution exclusion. Second example, a roofing contractor was using chemicals to seal a roof. When the HVAC system was accidentally turned on while he was doing the work, it pulled the fumes into the building. Likely, again, excluded. Bodily injury or property damage arising out of the actual, alleged, or threatening discharge, dispersal, seepage, migration, release, or escape of pollutants at or from any premises, site, or location, et cetera, et cetera. So the exception does not apply as the contractor was outside. Again, you'll want to read through these exceptions, see what the criteria is, and go from there. And the last example, XYZ, a biotech firm, is one office in an office building which houses other biotech commercial tenants. An air release from XYZ's lab caused a fire, which inadvertently causes additional chemical spills, resulting fire water filters throughout the building. This is likely excluded because bodily injury or property damage arising out of the actual, alleged, or threatening discharge, dispersal, seepage, migration, release, or escape of pollutants at or from any premises, site, or location which is or was at any time owned or occupied by or rented or loaned to any insured. Some available products that we have, we've got the pollution legal liability. This covers pollution conditions originating from a designated location. We also offer the contractor's pollution liability. It covers the pollution conditions resulting from covered operations performed by the insured contractor. We do offer E&O, which covers pollution conditions resulting from acts, errors, or omissions in professional services. So think advice or legal design. And then tank pollution covers pollution conditions and corrective actions resulting from release or discharge from the above ground and or underground storage tanks. When we're talking about pollution legal liability, or PLL, we offer limits up to $10 million per occurrence. Deductibles start at $1,000 with minimum premiums starting at $1,000. We do have annual or multi-year policies available. We can write schedule or blanket, so properties, disposal sites, and vehicles. Pre-existing conditions are excluded, but this can be modified by use of a retroactive date. And covers emergency response costs within 36 hours. Remember, we talked about this emergency response is quite expensive. Some top classes for pollution legal liability, food processing, petroleum refinement, lumber yards, pest control, dry cleaners, manufacturing companies, transportation facilities, real estate, chemical engineering, and lab testing. This is not a comprehensive list. This is just what we see pretty often. When we're talking about contractors' pollution liability, otherwise known as CPL, not to be confused with comprehensive personal liability. Some product highlights we can write on an occurrence form, and it does include mold abatement. Limits are available up to $10 million aggregate or job specific, with multi-year policies available if needed. The covered operations is listed in the declaration, but we can also offer a blanket. CPL minimum premiums start at $1,000. We can write this in a package, so packaging the general liability, the contractor pollution liability, as well as the pollution liability. Those premiums typically start around $1,500. We can write up to $10 million per project aggregate. Prior acts coverage is available for buyback. Transportation pollution for contractor vehicles and equipment is available. Site pollution for contractor premises with construction yard. And defense outside the limit and first dollar defense is also available. Some top classes that we see for this: demolition, drilling, restoration, roofing, abatement, hazard materials, excavation, remediation, UST contractors. Most contractors are required to have some sort of pollution liability coverage. So have those conversations with your insureds about this. When we're talking about errors and omissions, E&O, it's written typically on a claims-made form with limits up to $10 million on the primary or with an umbrella. Deductibles typically start around $1,000 with a minimum premium of around $1,000. Defense outside the limit and first dollar defense are both available. Contractors pollution and GL can be added as a package. Includes coverage for site pollution liability, think for laboratories. And some top classes we write for E&O in pollution: air monitoring, lead consultants, UST testing, toxicologists, environmental engineers, waste treatment plants, mold inspectors, geotech surveying, and many, many, many more. Like I said, these lists aren't meant to be comprehensive. It's just to kind of get your brains going in that general direction of who to have conversations with as far as your customers. If there's someone specific or a type of business specific that you are curious to see if we have an option for, please do reach out to us. Storage tank pollution. Final category. So some highlights. Available as a basic or broad form. We do offer limits up to $1 million per claim. Defense costs can be written outside the limits. Business interruption and extra expense options are available. Those have limits of $25,000 or $50,000. Tank repair and replacements are available with limits of $25,000 or $50,000. Deductibles from $1,000 to $10,000. Typically, higher deductibles are available for those larger risks with an extended reporting period. We write tanks for pretty much all types of business that have tanks, but some of the top classes: auto dealerships, card locks, convenience stores, counties and ports, distribution and trucking centers, garages, hospitals, public entities, school districts, tank farms. There's all sorts of storage tanks out there for all sorts of businesses. Some selling tips for this particular type of coverage: don't be afraid to use examples. If you're writing even just a couple of pollution policies for your insureds, ask them if you can get a testimonial from them or use their particular situation as an example when talking to your other insureds. Pointing out the specific exposures and costs associated with these exposures to your business, to your insureds and their business. That's really effective. It makes it very tangible for them to understand why they would need coverage. Take advantage of coverage gaps by cross-selling other endorsements and policies. Like I said, a lot of the common exclusions that we see are either covered through other policies or can be endorsed back on. If you're having these conversations with your insureds and for whatever reason they just decide that they don't want to move forward with this particular type of coverage, but you see a strong exposure and you think they should have it, have them sign a cover rejection letter, put it in their file. That way, should anytime down the road, unfortunately, if they do come across having to file a claim and they find out that they don't have the adequate insurance or that, they're not covered at all, they then cannot come back to you, the agent, and say, well, gosh, you never talked to me about this. This is your fault. You will have that coverage rejection letter. And then always follow up after binding. I can't stress this enough. Some of the best agents out there are ones that have multiple conversations per year with their insureds, not just at the time of renewal or inception of a policy. They check in with them either every couple months or every 6 months. The whole point of having a business for your insureds is to grow the business and change. Businesses don't change just once a year. They change throughout the year. So have those open conversations with your insureds. It shows them that you care. It shows them that you have their best interest at heart and that you're doing your best to take care of them. In order to get a quote for pollution liability, we need applications. This is a class that unfortunately we're not able to quote online or over the phone. You can find our applications online, www.gogus.com. You're going to sign in using your agency ID and password. Click on Forms and Applications. I believe it's under Brokerage or P&C, depending on the type of coverage you're looking for. And you're just going to click and get those appropriate applications, depending on what you need. If you can't find what you're looking for or are unsure about what applications you do need to fill out, please do reach out to us. We are here to help you. For those Allstate agents, you can email us at csr@gogus.com, or for those non-Allstate or independent agents, you can email us at info@gogus.com. You can also give us a call. Again, my name is Carly. I wanted to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this tutorial. We appreciate working with you. We appreciate your business, and we look forward to working with you more in the future. Have a wonderful day.